You enjoying having the house to yourself again?
Yeah, just finished, well, not just finished, but we rearranged it back to kind of how it was before.
Nice.
Yep, so I have an office again. Quite nice.
I bet. I don't know what I'd do without my office.
It's a nice place to escape from children and other things in life that need escaping from.
Yeah, it's kind of like a temple to myself. All my hobbies and interests are just all around me.
Yep. Although I think the acoustics in my office are slightly worse because it's a barer room.
Yeah. You got to get some of that soundproof foam.
I've been meaning to for so long. I should really just go on Amazon and get some.
Yeah, it's a bit expensive, but I think it helps. Amazon
in Australia is not that good either. I've just been shopping for a seemingly hard to find cable, USB-C to mini USB, because my microphone's mini USB and I always plug it into my iPad. And so currently it takes two things, like an adapter and a cable to plug it in. And of course, every time I go to set up, either part of that connection is missing somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been trying to find one, but Amazon in Australia, I mean, it's a website, and they stock some things, but nowhere near the comprehensive catalogue of your North American Amazon.
Is that something that is on the American Amazon? I've never even heard of a cable like that.
You know what? I only searched for it maybe 12 months ago, and it didn't exist, but I searched for it today, and it does exist, so it exists. Amazingly. And it could be, it'd be really useful because I think my camera also connects with mini USB.
Yeah.
It has Wi-Fi, but the Wi-Fi is dog slow. I think it's like G. So tend to stick to the cable.
802.11G, how old is your camera?
I don't know. It's a good camera still. So cameras don't go out of date too quickly unless you want to be like really on the cutting edge. Let's see, my camera was released in, where is it? 2012.
Really?
Yes.
802.11N came out in 2002.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of ridiculous. Maybe it's not G. Maybe it's just really bad at transferring data, like the processor.
Maybe.
Let's have a look.
It could have just been cheaper to use an older Wi-Fi chip, too. Well, here I see it says 802.11N came out in 2009.
Okay. Oh, actually, I was wrong. It does have 802.11n. But, I mean, it's incredibly slow, so it must just be some slow chip that's running the transfer. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, even 802.11n is 2 versions out of date now, so.
But the camera does like a 20 megabyte file in about 10 seconds. That's incredibly slow.
I don't know.
Anyway, yeah, so Amazon in Australia is very lacking. And the problem is that there isn't really an alternative, because I guess the closest alternative would be eBay. But the problem is with eBay is that there's just everything on there, and there's no like centralized catalog, if you know what I mean. It's like, on Amazon there's like a stock listing, and 10,000 people could buy that item and then leave a review, legit or not, who's to say. Whereas on eBay, and I think they are changing this slightly, because I have seen some examples of having like stock listings, but someone will list something for sale and they might have 1,000 of it and it's sold, and then the next person lists the same thing, but it's not like the same catalog item. They put up different pictures and a different description, and who's to say whether the first item and the second item are actually the same thing, so whether any reviews are applicable or not.
Right, yeah, all you can go off of is the review of the seller, not the item.
Right, yeah. And from my experience, buying cheap cables off eBay doesn't lead to good results.
And you can't just use the American Amazon site and ship it to yourself?
Oh, I can. Just there's more shipping costs and a longer wait. But from what it looks like, I'm going to be doing that because the cable isn't too widespread. It's not.
I'd be interested to hear how that works for you. That sounds like a cool solution.
Yeah. Well, it's just one cable to lose instead of two. Perfect. What are you drinking today? Something cold?
Yes. This is silly sounding. I'm drinking a White Claw. Are you familiar with those?
No.
White Claw is a hard seltzer water. So it's like this is a mango seltzer with vodka in it.
Wow, you're going to have to explain some more words to me. What's a seltzer water?
Just carbonated water, flavored carbonated water.
Oh, okay.
So
mango with vodka. All right. So by the end of the show, it's going to be party time. You may be slurring some words.
It's only 5% alcohol, so it's basically just a beer
Okay.
in terms of alcohol content. But they're very popular over here right now, especially among like college-age kids. It's kind of the new cool drink. And
Right.
I saw a box of them at the store the other day. I'm like, I'm going to try a box and see why this is so popular. And now I understand it's pretty good.
Is it one of those really sweet drinks that kind of sucks you into thinking you're not drinking alcohol?
No, I wouldn't call it sweet at all. As a matter of fact, like, have you had LaCroix? Is that an Australian thing?
No. It might be, but I've not had it.
It's mostly the flavor of like carbonated water. Like, it's actually a little bit bitter. And there's like a hint of mango flavoring to it. But you really can't tell it's alcoholic either. But it's not because it's overly sweet, I wouldn't say.
What was the like popular drink as you were going through your high school or early
in high school?
years?
The popular drink was just whatever we could get for the cheapest. The $15 a gallon vodka that comes in a plastic bottle.
Oh, wow. But was it like a hip thing to drink?
A hip thing to drink. I can't think of anything. Maybe Smirnoff Ice. That was kind of popular when I was in college.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So I think that's probably what I saw more than anything else.
Oh, that's awful. I remember drinking a lot of Smirnoff Ice.
Oh, really?
And it's just not a nice drink, really.
I agree. That is one of those kind of sweet drinks, though. You can't really tell you're drinking alcohol.
Yeah. Wait, is the ice the black one? The blackish label? Because there was a red one as well. I think that was a bit sweeter, maybe.
Oh, man. I think there was a bunch of different colors, depending
probably
on what flavor you got. So
our big drink was a Red Bull and Jägermeister.
Oh, man. Okay, Jaeger bombs. That's what I did more than anything.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Nice.
The old Jaeger bomb.
Mostly
You
because
get
I
the-
love Red Bull.
Yeah.
So, well, I'm glad to see that our drinking tastes cross borders, transcend borders.
Seemed to be. Yeah. Well, I'm drinking black coffee.
That sounds more reasonable for the time zone you're in.
It's about as hard as it gets these days. Good morning, then.
Good morning.
We've got some niche-ish topics this week. Some
Yeah,
unusual ones.
I wouldn't say there's any big news this week.
Yeah, slow news week. But speaking of cables, the European Parliament, the EU, has called to introduce common chargers for all mobile phones. I think we should all settle on mini USB, personally.
It's a better connector in that it's more robust in terms of harder to damage than micro USB.
It certainly feels better to insert than micro USB, which always kind of feels like it's going to break.
Right. I think the last phone I had with a mini USB charger was a Motorola Crazer.
A Motorola Crazer with mini USB. I could have sworn back then even we were like pre-USB standards and you just had little like DC adapters, like little circle plugs.
I think that's the only phone I ever owned that had kind of a standardized charger in that way. But yeah, everything else was maybe a little barrel jack, but more often than not, some kind of like ridiculous proprietary charger that made absolutely no sense, and you had to have a special adapter to even use headphones.
I think you might be talking about Sony Ericsson. They might have done this, where your headphones was like kind of like a 30 pin with devil horns on either end. And that's for your headphones. Why? Come on. 3.5 millimeter headphone jack has been around for a long time. There's no reason not to have one. Although, sorry, there is a reason to have one. They often use the headphone wire as like the FM antenna. So that could have been part of it.
Well, that can be done over 3.5 millimeter as well. Apple's done that with iPod Nanos in the past.
Oh, okay.
So, I was under the understanding that this had already been done at some point in the past, and the EU had standardized on micro USB. And this was years ago, but I thought I remember reading something about Apple had to include like a pack-in Lightning to micro USB adapter with their European iPhones for that reason.
Yeah, I remember that as well.
So I wonder if this is like a refresh, or maybe the law never actually got passed. Because the article says this drive to make a common adapter started in 2014, which sounds about right. So maybe it never actually got finalized.
Or maybe they're looking to tighten the restrictions to avoid exactly what happened, which is people just ship their proprietary cable with an adapter, which could possibly have led to even more waste.
Right. Although it's a lot of waste to have a company design a phone for a specific region as well. There's a lot of extra manufacturing waste that goes into that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind. I think USB-C is a great standard, and most things are already standardized to that. I wouldn't mind seeing like wireless charging be a standard as well.
That would be amazing if it was wireless charging. But I think there are too many other types of devices that it wouldn't really suit. Specifically like really small devices that you couldn't even fit a wireless charger in.
Well, this is just in the context of mobile phones, according to this article.
Let's see. It does say, the article, all mobile phones, tablets, ebook readers, and other portable devices. So
I see.
Portable devices are a little bit vague. It could be referring to things like smartwatches or like Fitbit style things. Anything you might wear on wearables. There you go.
Right. I feel like if the AirPods can fit wireless charging in, most things can.
Yeah, yep.
But I think just for the sake of like having public chargers, it's the case around here. I'm sure it's probably over there as well. Places like coffee shops or airports have like little charging stations that have like a ton of wires dangling out of them for every phone for the last 10 years. It'd be really cool to see like one standard charger, and if that's wireless charging, maybe there's just a wireless charger built in like every table at the coffee shop and things like that, to make topping off your phone so convenient you kind of don't even have to think about it anymore, because everywhere you go your phone's charging.
Yeah, you just sit down for coffee and you put your phone down next to you and it's charging.
Right.
With the added benefit that it's a little bit harder it's easier to make a wireless charger unbreakable. As in, if you build it into the surface of a table, as I believe IKEA has already done, although that might be lamps, or it could be both. But it's unlikely. If it's kind of flush with the surface of the table, it's fairly unbreakable. But our public transport system, a couple of years ago now, they trialled fitting the buses with USB ports. Mm-hmm. And of course, within like a month, morons who were catching the public transport were like shoving things in and breaking the ports, and so the trial was just cancelled and nothing ever went ahead.
Right.
But imagine that was wireless chargers. There's nothing to snap off. There's nothing to poke in. It might not even have been like malicious. Maybe it was just little kids messing around with USB ports and breaking them. Who's to say? Although buses don't really have like a horizontal surface to build something into for a wireless charger, but I'm sure they can come up with something.
Yeah, like a window sill or armrest or something. I don't know.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, I'm on board for the standardization of cables in general. it's a mess to keep track of everything. So it seems cool to me if they actually ever figure it out. The problem is, as soon as you standardize on something, like if they would have decided on micro USB those years back when I first heard about this, everything's moved to USB-C at this point, and what a headache that would be if people still had to make micro USB devices just because of the legislation.
Right, yeah. It needs to be fairly forward-looking. I couldn't imagine them settling on anything besides USB-C at this point, though.
Right. And hopefully that's a longer-lasting standard, and, another 8 years from now, we're not talking about USB-D or whatever.
The other end of the cable, because we've been mostly talking about the part that plugs in, but the other end of the cable is equally as important because basically the whole world has standardized on the outlet being USB-A. That's what the regular one's called, isn't it? USB-A.
Yep.
But now, of course, we're going to USB-C, but like every other hotel in the world and basically every airport in the world have all put their power outlets as USB-A. So now you've got the case of which is the standard for the wall side of the cable.
I think if you want to be really forward-thinking, you'd want both ends to be USB-C, but I don't see that being widespread and standardized for, a good 5 years or so at least. As more devices get USB-C, it'll make more sense for both ends of the cable to be USB-C. So, but it was only just last year that Apple started shipping a Lightning USB-C cable, even though they've had like USB-C on their MacBooks for years. So we're just now seeing the introduction or like the phasing out of USB-A. So I think it's going to be a while. But if you're going to be forward thinking about it, I think that's the only logical thing.
Has to be. So the 2020 iPhone, Lightning USB-C or neither?
I don't think they can practically get rid of the port yet. I'm leaning towards USB-C. I think it'll happen this year.
I think a lot of people are rooting for USB-C on the iPhone, me included.
Right.
It would be actually a very strong selling point for me to have USB-C on the iPhone.
They're doing a major redesign this year, so it makes sense to change the port at the same time. And
if it's not this year...
Yeah, the iPhone's the only device that still really uses Lightning besides accessories and their lower-end iPads. So I think it makes complete sense to start transitioning everything over to USB-C.
But the AirPods Pro are still Lightning.
That's true. The accessories are.
Yeah, and they're fairly recently released as well.
Yeah, that's the tough thing, is that all these accessories were designed to be easy to charge and use with your already existing devices because they all have the same charger. But isn't this a different situation than 2012 when Lightning came out and everyone was mad that all their 30-pin accessories, had required an adapter or whatever. There'll be a couple years of complaining, but I think in the end it'll be for the best.
And a little bit different from back then is that there aren't too many like hardcore accessories with Lightning, because I'm thinking back to like docks and iPods and like cars with like the cables actually built in, like non-removable cables, and big ticket items that cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars with 30-pin built in. I don't see that so much with Lightning because a lot of the things have gone to either removable cables because they were bitten by the change to Lightning already, or just like in case of stereos, it's just wireless audio instead.
Right. Yeah. I don't think this is going to be as bad of a transition as before. But I think it's mostly going to be Apple's own accessories this time that's going to hinder them.
They just need a little bit of courage, I would say.
Yeah.
There's no way they can actually get rid of a port. Surely not. What are people going to plug their wired headphones into?
Some kind of wired to Bluetooth dongle.
And they exist, don't they? I'm pretty sure they exist.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can never actually totally get rid of the port just for diagnostic reasons. So there's always going to be something. The question is whether or not it's going to be user accessible, or they're planning on getting to be like an Apple Watch model where it's kind of hidden away.
Or an Apple TV model where there's a lightning connector built into the Ethernet port.
Yeah, there you go. They can put an Ethernet port on the iPhones to hide a lightning jack in.
Your idea from a previous show was to hide something in the the SIM card slot.
Either that or use the camera rings with a magnetic adapter. Yeah.
Oh, that was it, wasn't it? That would be brilliant. There are enough contact points. It's the new smart connector. And it turns out that if you want to use wired headphones, you get this like massive clamp that goes over the cameras now.
Did you see the 3.5 millimeter adapter for the Essential phone?
No.
Just quickly look that up. What it takes to connect wired headphones to the Essential phone.
All right, images. What am I? Oh, it's exactly what I imagined. Some sort of big clampy thing that looks like it's on the back of the phone, opposite side to the camera, though, not over the top. But it's at least as thick as the phone itself.
Right. Yeah, the Essential phone had a kind of a universal magnetic port there that you could connect different accessories to, and one of them was a wired headphone adapter.
It seems pretty hardcore, though. Full MQA rendering, of course, everyone needs that, and an audiophile grade amp that delivers high impedance headphones, that powers high impedance headphones.
Yeah, if you've got that much space, you might as well put something good in there.
Wow. And the tweet from Essential themselves, oh yeah, and it brings back the 3.5mm audio jack. Oh yeah, for increasing the thickness of your phone by a factor of 2.
Right.
You'd hope you got a fair bit out of it.
And it's just on there magnetically, so hopefully you're not taking it out of your pocket too.
It's magnetic. Oh.
Yeah.
Did not really see that working.
Well, Essential hasn't made a phone since, and it's been a good 4 years, so.
Redneck T says in the comments, if we can't agree on a date format, then how do we ever agree on a charging standard?
I think it helps that for the most part we already have. Like, I don't even necessarily see the need for legislation just because most devices are USB-C already.
Okay.
So, and I don't know what you're going to do for devices like the Apple Watch. They're not going to force Apple to put a USB-C port on the Apple Watch.
No, surely devices that don't have a port are excluded, though.
Right. Well, it completely depends on the wording. If they just say any like mobile device that charges, they could get into some muddy water there. This may stay in debate for another 6 years and never go anywhere, but...
Well, the EU have done some crazy things in the past, so we'll see.
This is why Britain's leaving, because of this charging port standardization.
That's, a big part of Brexit, isn't it? Can you explain this comment, though? Just a sub-comment, a reply to the one I just read about if we can't agree on a date format, then how do we agree on a charging standard? And then Mr. Ed, of course, says he gives the standard date format, year, month, day, and then these are bullet points. Metric, of course, metric is superior. USB-C, right side of the road. I'm not sure about that. But then Battlestar Galactica as the 5th point.
What?
All right, so you can't explain it to me either.
I mean, I've never seen any episodes of Battlestar Galactica, but that and right side of the road. I mean, are you saying you disagree with that being the standard?
Oh yeah, of course, just because I'm on the opposite.
Right. But you're one of like 3 countries in the world that drives on the left side of the road.
Really? I didn't know it was so few.
I'm pretty sure it's a very small number. I'm going to look it up.
So
76 countries.
76 out of the 300 or whatever. That's a fairly decent number. Maybe we should look at populations, though.
Maybe.
30 million people drive on the left.
Man.
What side does China drive on?
I think they're on the right. Let's see. Yep, they drive on the right side of the road.
All right.
But Hong Kong drives on the left side of the road.
And they're writing about it as we speak.
Imagine driving in and out of Hong Kong. Oh, I'm looking at it right now. They have some pretty interesting bridges and intersections to transition in and out of Hong Kong.
Well, it must be the same between France and England, right?
I suppose.
Anyway, so I think you might be suggesting that Battlestar Galactica is like the standard of TV shows.
Wait.
You should watch it if you haven't already.
Okay. My attention is spread across so few TV shows that it takes a long time for me to add something else to my watch list. But
all right, we'll put it on the list.
There is a tunnel between England and France. Okay.
Yeah, the Channel Tunnel. The Channel.
I wasn't aware. I was like, England, the island, is connected to mainland France, but okay.
Wait, what did you say? England, the island.
Yeah.
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 So app tracking alert in iOS 13. App tracking alerts. The app tracking alert in iOS 13 has dramatically cut location data flow to the ad industry. Apple's initiatives to minimize tracking by marketers is continuing to make life harder for the advertising industry, forcing advertisers to use inefficient data sources to pinpoint users. From our least favorite news site, appleinsider.com. Are we in agreement on that?
I suppose. I don't have a strong opinion about Apple Insider, but it's not one that I would choose to go to.
Someone in the comments has, a Fuzzy Zeus in the comments has kind of rewritten the rhetoric in the article to clarify exactly what's going on. So that's worth a read.
Oh, yep. I saw that comment.
Yeah.
There were some interesting standout things to me. This percentage was the big standout of the article to me. Of the people who installed the iOS 13 update, around 80% of them stopped using all background tracking by apps.
Yeah, that's all background tracking.
Right, for all apps. Yeah.
For all apps. That's a big number.
Yeah. I guess this prompt really is educating people, because I would have guessed that most people would have ignored it and just left it on, but iOS 13 makes it a lot harder to do.
It's possibly because the default button, like the one in bold, is changed to when using.
Right.
And thinking about how my less techie friends and family use their phones, they're nearly always just clicking the default option, which is a good thing in this case. Oh, it's nearly always a good thing on iOS.
Yeah. There's rarely a reason for apps to be tracking you when they're not even active.
It's been enlightening to how many were doing it as well. I mean, Thinking back to when we first installed it, probably beta 1 or beta 2.
Mm-hmm.
A long way back, but I remember being surprised.
That and pretty much every app wanted access to my Bluetooth for some reason.
That's right, yeah. Although we suspected that was just like a standard library or something that a lot of the apps were using. It was maybe the Chromecast plugin.
Oh, right.
Because it discovered Chromecast devices using Bluetooth or something like that. So any app with the Chromecast, with a cast capability, wanted Bluetooth permissions.
I could also see how some people are just turning off background entirely, because it's a little annoying to have an app that you do want to track you, even in the background. I've got a monitor for my car that keeps track of where I am and where my car is, and like at specific times, like if it's the middle of the night and my car drives away from me, it'll like send me an alert, like something's going on, like the car is being stolen or something. So I leave that one on all the time, and I get a notification maybe once every few weeks saying, this app has been tracking you in the background, and it has like the map of everywhere that it's been tracking me, and I have to just confirm, like, yeah, that's okay. And I have to do that every few weeks. And so maybe someone gets annoyed by that and just turns it off so they don't have to see the pop-up anymore.
And there were other comments to that effect on this post, but I don't think I've actually seen it. And some of the replies were like, well, I saw it once or twice and then never again.
Maybe it has something to do with the frequency that the app checks your location. If it does it a bunch, Apple thinks maybe you need to be reminded or something.
Mm-hmm.
So the only other one I can think of is my bank app, which is kind of a cool idea. But my bank specifically keeps track of your location on your phone, And if your card gets used in a place that it hasn't been used before, instead of just triggering a fraud alert, it'll check your current location. If it's the same, it won't deactivate your card.
Yeah, that's pretty smart. Although, what if someone took your phone and your cards?
Well, I guess then I'm screwed. So,
but I suspect it's something like what you said, that people are just sick of the prompts and are just changing things to only while using, just as the default.
Yeah, I do worry sometimes that iOS 13 has kind of crossed a line into like the Vista level amount of security prompts for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And Apple's going to need to maybe figure out how to dial that back a little bit in the coming years, because it's maybe getting to a point where it happens so much that people are ignoring them or just clicking through them instead of reading them because they see them so much.
Yeah, prompt fatigue. Well, I think there might be a better name for it, but something like that. I don't think iOS 13 has crossed that line, but I'll definitely say macOS is well over it.
That's fair. Yeah, macOS is pretty bad. Maybe it's just compared to what I'm used to in all the previous versions of iOS, coming to iOS 13 with all those years of expectations, it feels more burdensome than it would be to someone who's maybe new to it or less familiar with the settings and kind of needs those reminders.
At least we don't have that like iOS 4 through 8 where it would just constantly prompt you for a password for no apparent reason to sign into X or Y. I think it would just say like sign into your Apple ID fairly regularly with no apparent reason. Of course, it just got people used to typing in their password all the time. And
some malware definitely took advantage of that.
Mm-hmm, yep.
Yeah, I agree that this is better. I wish it was maybe like, I don't know, like a pro mode or something I could turn on. It's like, hey, I know what the settings are. You don't need to remind me or something like that.
Yeah, I can see that happening. Speaking of pro mode, and this isn't a topic, but did you see that evidence of a pro mode has been discovered in, I think it's Mac OS 10.15? What are we on now, 10.14? No, we're on 10.15, so...
Yes, I've so lost track of version numbers, but yeah, we're on 10.15. I just pulled up about this Mac, and I'm still running the beta of 10.15. Oops.
Whoops.
That's how rarely I come to this computer.
10.16, I think it might have been 9 to 5 Mac, discovered evidence of a pro mode. Basically, what it would do is like the opposite of battery saving mode. It would let the fan spin up a little bit more and burn the battery as quickly as it could in exchange for greater performance.
Yeah, I suppose that could be useful for some people that are doing heavy workloads on the laptops. Maybe even if you're working plugged in primarily, you don't have to worry about battery drain and you don't care about the fan noise too much. You could just leave it in pro mode.
Yeah, could be interesting, that one.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how much of a difference it actually makes.
Higher on the list than pro mode, I would put battery saving mode though. And there was an article also on the subreddit, which is also not in our list today, is written by Marco Arment about the need for a battery saving mode on the Mac. And that would be higher on my list as well, because there are a few components of Mac OS that tend to destroy the battery unnecessarily, even when you're not plugged in. Well, especially when you're not plugged in, of course, such as like photo analysis daemon.
Yep.
That's the big one. Actually, if you fix that one, then you probably wouldn't need a low power mode in my books, but there are some other arguments in that article worth reading, such as disabling turbo boost, giving you a pretty decent increase in battery life.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I bet that would work. I bet a lot of people would actually use that if you could extend their battery life by a couple hours in exchange for not having turbo boost. I don't think most people would even know the difference.
Yeah, I can imagine a lot more people needing a battery saving mode rather than a battery destroying mode as well.
Yeah, this seems to be more in response to just a lot of the comments recently that Apple's computers are underpowered and sacrificing performance for thermals and whatnot, or design.
Maybe it was coming from the pro workflow team.
The what?
the Pro workflow team, the advisors on the new Mac Pro.
Yeah.
People who work on feature-length films in Apple's office.
I'm a pro, so I need my computer to die after an hour for an extra 2% CPU performance boost.
Next from solutionfactory.in, the AirPods effect. Everyone wants to be Apple and beat Apple. This is just a little article about the AirPods effect. And as Jimny in the top comment says, wasn't this the iPhone effect, and before that the iPod effect?
Right,
and I would agree with
that's
that.
what I'd say. Pretty much everyone follows Apple on everything. They make a product or design choice, and you're pretty much guaranteed that everyone's going to follow suit. Interestingly, right after you put this article in our show notes, MKBHD actually made a video on this exact topic.
Yeah, okay. I haven't seen it yet. I should look that up.
It's called "Why Everyone is Copying AirPods," and this is a rundown basically of all the competitors that have sprung up in the last couple of years, and pretty much everyone who's making phones or headphones or even people aren't in those spaces like Amazon and Microsoft are all going in on this truly wireless, trying to get a little piece of this pie that Apple has kind of showed is a viable market. I think a couple of the main takeaways from his video is that all these companies are offering solutions to problems they created, referencing specifically the iPhone 7 event where they removed the headphone jack and then less than 30 minutes later debuted AirPods. And then all the companies have followed suit in removing headphone jack and then offering their own wireless solution to that problem.
It is fairly brilliant to do that, isn't it?
He also mentioned specifically that the AirPods themselves are an $8 billion business that even as a separate company would be like middle of the pack in the Fortune 500. So it's clearly a good business strategy to go after this market, and it'd be silly for anyone not to, and so everyone is.
Why weren't AirPods or an alternative created earlier? Because the idea was fairly obvious. I think everyone could have imagined wireless headphones of that sort of form factor years beforehand. But of course, they were all fairly bulky things, like they wrapped around your ear or they wrapped behind your head with a cable. Or that was kind of the wireless headphone before the AirPods.
Yeah. This is so easy to imagine that I imagined exactly AirPods like in 2009. I remember in school having wired headphones, and Apple's wired headphones were always kind of crappy, and like one of the wires got yanked out of the earbud. And so I just had the earbud in my ear, and I told people that I had the new Apple wireless headphones.
Visionary.
So yeah, it's really easy to imagine. I think the real thing is that the easy pairing and connectivity is game changing. I think that truly wireless headphones existed before AirPods, but they were separate Bluetooth devices you kind of had to pair separately, and it was cumbersome to get everything to sync up and work. And when Apple came to market and showed how this could work in a viable, consumer-friendly way, the market just responded. People wanted a product like that, and competitors seeing that if they put in the extra R&D time to make something that's a little step above just plain pairing two separate Bluetooth devices, people want it. And so here we are.
I think that's a smaller part of the pie than the miniaturization of the AirPods. Because even now, I don't think there are many wireless headphones that are like near the size of the AirPods or that sort of form factor. They're often like these slightly larger things that go in your ear and look more like, I don't know, like form-fitting earplugs rather than headphones. Just thinking, I think, was it the Microsoft and the Google and the Samsung ones? Aren't they all kind of like more sort of bulky looking things?
Yeah, they're definitely a little bit bigger. I think AirPods are definitely on the smaller end of the market.
And I think that might be a huge part of their popularity. Because, I mean, even when AirPods came out, people said they looked slightly ridiculous because they kind of were just a touch larger than regular headphones in your ear. And the AirPods Pro have changed that slightly by having a shorter stem. But I don't think anything else even comes anywhere near the size of them. And I would put that down as probably one of the biggest reasons, even bigger than the ease of the pairing and connecting process, as what's made them so popular.
Yeah, I think that's a big factor as well. Just comparing AirPods to anything else I've seen in the market, I've never seen anything that looked compelling enough for me to want to transition from AirPods. Even the wireless devices that have extra features, like the Pixel Buds, are apparently able to do real-time translation. I don't know how well that actually works in practice. And some devices have like a voice assistant almost completely built into them. But none of that is worth what almost looks uncomfortable to me compared to the very small and comparably light AirPods.
Exactly, yeah.
So, yeah, I can definitely see that being a big factor as well. Of course, the downside of that is how big these batteries are, and then as effect, how quickly these kind of become obsolete. After a couple of years, AirPods are basically useless.
Right, yeah. I purposely avoid using my AirPods as like a headset for that involves like making calls, like what do you call that? I avoid using the microphone in my AirPods at all times because from my original pair of AirPods, where I did use the microphone regularly, often as part of my job, because I do talk on the phone a lot. I know this because it would always use the right side AirPods microphone. And after 6 months, the right side AirPod was basically unusable compared to the left side. So I know for a fact it was the microphone that destroys the battery like that.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I purposely avoid using the microphone on my AirPods just to try and get the best battery life, the battery longevity out of them that I can.
So do you just use like a wired headset for work then?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that makes sense. You could always maybe you can choose which microphone the AirPods use, and you could go in settings and like manually switch it back and forth every couple days to have it wear a little more evenly.
Yeah, I could do that. Or even every month or something would be fine, really.
Right. So they're still going to die faster, but at least they'll be dying at the same rate.
So what do you think the future then of AirPods is? Better battery longevity.
Yeah.
I think I was listening to something from, it might have been Renee Ritchie saying, like AirPods could potentially, this is probably long-term future, but become standalone devices on their own. Imagine that. Imagine AirPods with like a 5G chip somehow. I mean, this is,
so you have Apple Music right there.
Yeah, you have Apple Music right there. All you have to do when you leave your home is put your AirPods in. You can play your music, make your phone calls.
Yeah, imagine something like that, and then the case had like a vibrate motor, a little speaker built in. So if you're getting a phone call, your case vibrates, and you pop in an AirPod. And that makes a lot of sense to me, actually.
Yeah, so you'd have the cellular and the vibrator motor built into the case. Yeah, that
right, and then you just Bluetooth to the AirPods.
That sounds a little more likely than actually building anything else into the AirPods themselves.
Right. I could see some things added to the AirPods. I still think that maybe touch controls along the stem make sense, which they're kind of getting towards with the Pros. I could see health features, like maybe a heart rate sensor built into the AirPod or something to that effect. So I think there's definitely a lot of room for growth here. But man, maybe we just stepped into a great idea with this, like audio only phone.
So what is your startup and engineering expertise?
Well, I can help with the software portion. And my brother's a mechanical engineer, so maybe he could lend a hand in some parts of the design, but not really industrial engineer.
Do you think if I started an electrical engineering course in the next few weeks, I could come up with something within my lifetime?
Within your lifetime? Oh, yeah. Apple will have already had something on market, 30 years before then, but you'll get there.
Speaking of future iPhones may act as emergency beacons even without cell services. From our favorite news source, appleinsider.com.
Man, I do not understand your opinions on Apple Insider.
What? Our favorite
Did they
news
do
source.
something? I'm so unfamiliar with them.
Well, I have a vague memory of not liking them, but I can't remember why.
Okay.
If we look through our show notes, of which there is a long history, I'm sure we would find some reason to dislike them.
Okay. Yeah, this emergency beacon thing makes a lot of sense, since they're already using this technology to share the location of lost devices via other devices. I mean, it makes perfect sense to leverage this technology for other features. Emergency beacons is probably the most obvious one, but the ability to maybe create like almost a network of iOS devices that can send messages and who knows what between each other, almost like a decentralized internet.
Imagine that. I think people have been dreaming of that for a long time, haven't they?
Right. I think the problem is as soon as you start trying to do anything that requires a lot of data, you're gonna be hurting people's battery life and way too much.
Every second of usage is like a net negative effect on everybody. So
right.
It just doesn't scale.
Right. So I think that like locating devices and emergency beacons are probably the most we're ever going to see. Maybe just like text messages, like iMessage, but I don't even think you do full iMessage. It'd have to be like just plain text. Maybe you could pull that off without having too much of an obvious effect. But other than that, I think this is about the peak of what we're going to see.
Just on iMessage, there was such a random comment. I thought it was so random that I put it in our show notes. The comment, all I want is airdrop-based text messages for when my mates and I are spread out around an A380. That is a very specific use case. They even specify the model of the plane that they want it to work on.
I mean,
that
I
was
think
from
that'd be,
Check for Response.
I think that could be a cool idea as well, like a peer-to-peer iPhone communication that's opt-in and not just because you own an iPhone, you're part of this network.
But not on Boeing planes, only Airbuses.
I think that could be useful for things just like this. I mean, devices have had features like that for years. I can think of like the Nintendo DS's always had the local chat, where if you had someone within like a block of you with another Nintendo DS, you could chat with them.
Oh, really?
So,
that's cool.
Yeah. So this is, I don't know, maybe an obvious add-on, peer-to-peer. You could just send texts to each other over AirDrop as is, though. Just scribble it on a picture and AirDrop it to them.
Right, yeah, or share I think you can AirDrop notes, can you? Without... No, you might need to sell for that.
I bet you could, as long as you're within Wi-Fi range of each other. So...
I think this article was elaborated on a little bit more than... or a bit of flourish was added to the article. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but the origin of this article is a patent, right? Mm-hmm. But all that's in the patent is it's basically a power-saving mode for when the phone needs to be in an emergency situation. So what the patent describes is just a phone going into low power mode in order to be able to broadcast an emergency beacon. Such as turning off the screen, turning off the Wi-Fi and GPS, or putting them to low power mode, rather. Mm-hmm. So the whole thing is it's basically a power saving mode, less so like a peer-to-peer emergency beacon mode.
All right, you think they're taking the emergency beacon aspect and kind of just making some assumptions about what that means?
Well, they needed to write an article about something.
I mean, I'm not sure how practical this actually would be. I'm sure there are emergencies where this is the case, but for the most part, I can't imagine being in a position where you're having an emergency and you don't have Wi-Fi or cell reception, but there is a chain of Apple devices between you and the nearest internet connection. Like, I'm not sure how that works practically speaking.
Well, one of the commenters, and I won't be able to find it in time, but I'm not sure if this is a thought or actually happening, but they said like emergency services vehicles, even helicopters, well, probably especially helicopters, were actually flying around when they were doing searches with mini cell towers, well, not towers obviously, but cell radios built into them. So that if they were flying overhead of someone in the middle of nowhere, their phone could pick up reception and then relay whatever emergency data needed to be relayed.
Okay. So maybe there are situations where that makes sense. So I don't see how it could hurt. It'd be leveraging an infrastructure that Apple's already set up, within the last year. So I could definitely see them expanding on this idea. It's a brand new idea. It's pretty innovative. There's a lot of potential there. I can definitely see it going farther than they're using it currently.
Yeah. There were a ton of references in this thread that completely went over my head. We're back to the Battlestar Galactica situation.
Okay.
I didn't write them down, but let me just have a look. Here's one. Actually, I think this top comment is serious, and I just don't understand it, but 303 on repeat says, did someone say a decentralized network? I understand that. Will Apple use the Pied Piper algorithm? I don't know what that is. But then the response is, the bigger question, does differences in girth matter? Bring on the rats.
Oh, boy. Okay. So all of those are references to the TV show Silicon Valley.
Okay.
Silicon Valley is about a tech startup that has called Pied Piper, has a really efficient compression algorithm, so efficient the issue we were talking about, transmitting a lot of data, basically becomes non-existent. They can compress big files into basically nothing. Mm-hmm. And so they leverage that technology to make a decentralized internet.
Right, okay. So, does that also explain this comment, wuphf.com? You make it so difficult to love you sometimes, Ryan.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right, so it looks like I need to watch Silicon Valley to start understanding a bit more of Reddit.
Silicon Valley is an excellent television show. I would highly recommend it. It's a 5-season show. It has 6 seasons, but it's a 5-season show.
All right.
So, it's really good because it's technically accurate a lot of the time. The writers definitely went through a lot of effort to make sure the things that the actors were saying are technically correct. For the first 5 seasons, and then in season 6, it kind of like it ended on a great note at the end of season 5, and they're like, "Oh, this is a popular show; it needs another season." And then they kind of jumped the shark and made it completely ridiculous for the last season, and it makes no sense. So, yeah. Anyway, it's worth checking out. I just rewatched it like a couple months ago. The whole series.
It. Must be good then.
So, yeah, season 6 just ended, and I rewatched the first 5 seasons with Trina because she hadn't seen it before we watched season 6 together. And, yeah, season 6 isn't good.
All right. Put it on the list.
All right. Now we both have a new show on the list.
Yeah, we do. Who can finish it first? I think Battlestar Galactica has 4 or maybe 5 seasons. I think 4.
I mean, I don't know anything about it, but I thought Battlestar Galactica was one of those shows that had like it was an old show and then rebooted later on, but maybe I'm just thinking of Star Trek.
No, you're right, but when people talk about it, no one's talking about the old show.
Okay.
Everyone's talking about the new one.
So just watch the new one.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Samsung steals the Face ID icon. Yep, they did.
Classic Samsung.
Classic Samsung. Or Samsung.
That's right.
Ha ha ha. Classic joke.
What's funny to me is that this article asks the question about, is there really anything Apple can do about it? And it says that if Apple tried to take them to court, Samsung could make like the argument that this is a pretty generic icon and that it really shouldn't be trademarked in the first place, and they may have a case of winning. But the Face ID icon is the Happy Mac from like 1984. Like Apple, it's been Apple's icon for 40 years.
A long time.
So I couldn't see Apple losing, but also this is probably just a one-off. Like on the slide on a presentation, they used the Face ID logo and I'm probably never going to see it again. So it's probably not worth the hassle either.
I don't know. We might see it baked into a phone sometime in the future.
I mean, Apple went through a very long lawsuit with Samsung about copying all of their UI, and it didn't go well for them. So maybe Samsung feels like they can just get away with it now.
They actually have a face unlock glyph already, which is just
right,
a face and a head.
But people don't recognize that as much as the Face ID icon, clearly.
Yeah. But surely that's a bias because we use Face ID all the time. So we know what it looks like, whereas some random off the street might well think the face looks more like a Face ID icon.
Right.
Or the head, rather.
It's also funny to me how similar their fingerprint authentication icon looks like the Touch ID icon.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, there's like a couple extra breaks in the fingerprint to make it not the same print as the Touch ID icon, but otherwise it's the same.
Someone just got out the eraser in Photoshop.
Yeah. So, I don't know much more to say about that, except that's expected behavior from Samsung.
Yep. So what actually are they using the icon for? It's some sort of new wallet service or something that they're doing?
Yeah,
Samsung Pass.
It's supposed to be some kind of authentication service. I'm not super familiar with it. I haven't actually looked into what the product itself was, but my very surface level understanding is that it's maybe some kind of cross-platform identity verification kind of thing.
Yeah, the article describes as biometric identity management as a service. And also keep in mind it's entirely possible that Samsung Pass is coming to the iPhone, and in which case the Face ID icon was on purpose to spell that out.
The way it sounds to me is when, like, you have sign in with Google or sign in with Facebook, you could have like a sign in with Samsung Pass, where then it goes to Samsung to verify your identity. But no thanks.
Yeah, nah. Speaking of, have you had many occasion to use sign in with Apple?
No. As far as I'm aware, none of the apps I use support it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Although I wouldn't know for sure because all the apps I use, I signed in on when I got my iPhone 11, and I haven't needed to sign in again since. So maybe that feature's been added, but I wouldn't know.
Yeah, it's probably more likely to come up for something brand new that you need to sign up for as well.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited for the opportunity. I'd love an excuse. That's the only reason I still have Facebook is because I tried deleting it a couple years back and realized you have to have your Facebook active to use sign in with Facebook.
Ah, right, okay.
Everything uses that, so.
Yeah.
What about you? Have you seen it yet?
I was just trying to think. I think I may have used it for one thing to sign up for. But I'll definitely keep an eye out for it.
Yeah,
so we can talk about it at some point.
April that it's mandatory to be in all apps?
Mandatory from April, okay. So we're likely to see it a little bit more around then.
Yeah. So, yeah, that'll be cool.
Well, I'm James VDM on Reddit and Twitter.
And I'm Jellywoot on Reddit and Twitter.